The Wild West was a land of danger, heroes, and legends. From fearless outlaws to brave leaders and sharpshooters, their stories shaped the image of America forever. Today, we uncover the top icons of the American frontier. Allan J. Pinkerton. Allan J. Pinkerton's story begins with a sharp eye and a brave heart. He was a man from Scotland who came to the United States. One day he found people making fake money near the town of Dundee, Illinois. He quickly told the sheriff, and this act of honesty and courage made people notice him. Soon after, he became the first police detective in Chicago. In 1850, he started the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. This agency stopped train robbers, protected President Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War, and became known across the country. Pinkerton's name was tied to the fight against crime, and he became a symbol of law and order in a fast-changing land. Stagecoach Mary. From law and detectives, we now move to the dusty trails where a woman carried the mail through danger. Mary Fields, better known as Stagecoach Mary, was unlike anyone else. Born into slavery in Tennessee around 1832, she lived a hard life but never gave up. After freedom, she worked many jobs and even fixed things around a convent. Later, she became a mail carrier in Montana. From 1895 to 1903, she drove her stagecoach through wild lands, meeting wolves, storms, and sometimes outlaws. She carried guns to protect herself and never failed to deliver the mail. People in the town of Cascade loved her. She was even allowed to sit in saloons, which was against the law for other women. Stagecoach Mary showed courage every day, and that made her a true frontier hero. Crazy Horse. As we follow the frontier paths further, we come to a leader whose name is still spoken with great respect. Crazy Horse, called Tashunke Witko in the Lakota language, was born around 1840. He was quiet and often kept to himself, but he gave all he had for his people. At the famous Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, he led his warriors against General Custer and the U.S. Army. They won a victory that shook the nation. Crazy Horse never agreed to live inside reservations, even when the U.S. government pushed hard. He fought many battles to protect his people's land and way of life. In 1877, he died in captivity at about age 37. Though his life was short, his spirit still lives. A giant memorial is being carved in the Black Hills to honor him, showing how deeply he is remembered. Ben Lilly. From a warrior of the plains, we travel into the mountains, where a hunter became famous for chasing the largest beasts. Ben Lilly was born in Alabama in 1856. People called him Old Lilly because he lived like a mountain man. He loved the wild and spent most of his life tracking bears, cougars, and wolves. He killed many of them, which made him a legend among hunters. In 1907, President Theodore Roosevelt even asked him to guide a hunting trip in Louisiana. Ben Lilly's life showed the untamed spirit of the frontier, where men lived close to nature and earned fame with their skill and toughness. Geronimo. Leaving the mountains, our journey takes us to the deserts and rocky lands, where another powerful leader fought for his people. Geronimo, born in 1829, was an Apache warrior who became one of the most famous figures of the West. For many years, he led battles against both Mexican and American soldiers. He wanted to protect Apache lands from settlers and armies. In 1886, after decades of fighting, he finally surrendered. Geronimo was taken prisoner, but even then, people wanted to see him. He was shown at fairs and parades, including President Theodore Roosevelt's parade in 1905. Though he asked Roosevelt to free the Apache prisoners, the answer was no. Still, Geronimo's name became known everywhere, and he stood as a symbol of strength and resistance. Wyatt Earp. Now we step into the noisy boomtowns where law and order often hung by a thread. Wyatt Earp was born in 1848 and became one of the most famous lawmen in American history. He is best remembered for the gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881. There, with his brothers Virgil and Morgan and his friend Doc Holliday, he faced a group of outlaws known as the Cochise County Cowboys. The shootout lasted only seconds, but it became the most famous gunfight of the Old West. Afterward, Wyatt formed a posse and hunted down more outlaws. Later in life, he ran saloons and made money in new boomtowns like Nome, Alaska. Though some accused him of fixing a boxing match, his name lived on as a fearless figure of frontier justice. Annie Oakley. Let's turn to the bright lights of the stage, where a woman with a rifle amazed the world. Annie Oakley, born in 1860 in Ohio, grew up poor but had a gift with guns. She became so skilled that she joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. There, she amazed crowds by hitting small targets with perfect aim. She even traveled to Europe, where she performed for Queen Victoria of England and the King of Italy. Annie Oakley believed women should know how to use guns to protect themselves, and she once offered to train a group of women sharpshooters for the U.S. government. Her talent and bold spirit made her more than a performer. She became an icon of women's strength in a time when few women were allowed to shine. Jesse James. Next up, Jesse James was born in Missouri in 1847, the son of a preacher, but his path took him far away from a quiet life. As a young man during the Civil War, he joined groups called bushwhackers who fought for the southern side in violent ways. After the war, Jesse and his brother Frank chose crime instead of peace. They gathered a gang and robbed banks, trains, and stagecoaches across the Midwest. People feared their bold attacks, and yet some also saw them as rebels standing against big banks and railroads. Jesse became the most famous outlaw of his time, and his name spread across the country. But in 1882, betrayal ended his story. Robert Ford, a man in his own gang, shot him while he stood in his own home. Jesse James died at just 34 years old, leaving behind a wife, 4 children, and a legend that still echoes. Henry McCarty. Moving on to another young man whose life burned even brighter but shorter. Henry McCarty, better known as Billy the Kid, was born in New York City around 1859. He lost his parents early and grew up with hardship. By his teenage years, he had already turned to stealing and crime. When he killed a blacksmith in Arizona, he fled back to New Mexico, where he worked as a cowboy and later joined a group called the Regulators during the Lincoln County War. Newspapers wrote about him constantly, making him a famous figure while he was still alive. Billy the Kid was known for being quick with a gun and bold in escape. He was captured by Sheriff Pat Garrett and sentenced to hang, but he broke out of jail and ran free again. For 2 months, he lived as a fugitive until Garrett tracked him down in Fort Sumner in 1881 and shot him dead. Billy the Kid was only 21 years old, yet his daring escapes and fearless ways made him one of the greatest legends of the West. Pat Garrett. And from the Outlaws story, we now turn to the lawman who brought him down. Pat Garrett was born in Alabama in 1850 and grew up to live many lives as a buffalo hunter, a cowboy, and finally a sheriff. In 1880, he was elected sheriff of Lincoln County, New Mexico, right at the height of Billy the Kid's crimes. Garrett also held a position as a deputy U.S. Marshal, which gave him power to travel across state lines to catch criminals. He used that authority to chase Billy, capture him, and eventually bring an end to the outlaw's life in 1881. Garrett later co-wrote a book about Billy the Kid, which made the story even more famous. He worked in many other roles too, including Texas Ranger Captain and Customs Collector, even serving under President Theodore Roosevelt. But his own life ended violently as well. In 1908, Pat Garrett was shot and killed during a land dispute. He is buried alongside his family and descendants at the Las Cruces Masonic Cemetery. These were just some of the legends who made the Wild West unforgettable. Who is your favorite frontier icon? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories from history.